On HQ, UConn and Illinois. In a tight one, under a minute to go, the freshman Braylon Mullins was the hero against Duke, this time putting his team up by 7. But how about another freshman, Keaton Wagler? Bringing it up the floor. Step back. Oh, these freshmen are ridiculous this year. Makes it a 4-point game. But in the end, after Wagler misses that 3, down 9, the Huskies are going back to the national title game looking for their 3rd championship in 4 seasons. Dan Hurley has got them one step closer to the promised land once again. And in this game, it was the Terrace Reed and Braylon Mullins show, particularly in the first half. They came on late in the second. Wagler came on strong, but it was Tomislav Visic. And he was really the only player outside of Wagler, of course, that was really consistent. So the ball added 13. How about Alex Caravan? Just continues to pave the way. 9, 4, and 4. 1 steal, 1 block. UConn moving on to the national championship game. Time now to bring in former 2-time ACC Defensive Player of the Year John Henson for UNC and former Duquesne guard Noah Bono. And guys, listen, the UConn Huskies, they did the exact opposite of what they did against Duke. They hit a tournament record for their school, or tied for a tournament record, I should say, 11 made threes. But, John, I know you love the big dogs, okay, down low. How much did Terrace Reed and his impact have to do with the victory that they got against Illinois?
Well, Illinois decided that they're going to try to go one-on-one. That didn't work early, and that kind of screwed up the game plan for them. They had to they knew they had shooters, so now you got guys that are coming down late, maybe not what they practice. And we saw, I just think UConn got better quality shots. Now, both teams shot horribly from the field. That's going to happen. New arena, big dome, big new court, new balls. But UConn got better quality shot. It seemed like every shot Illinois made was contested. It was tough. There was a guy in front. There was a guy challenging. And that ultimately is what won UConn the game. They just made more shots. They got better looks.
So they got better looks, and Noah, when you think about Braylon Mullins, who was struggling all tournament long, he hits that huge 3, right, to beat Duke in the Elite 8, coming back from 19 down. What did you see from him that allowed him to get off to such a hot start and give the Huskies the lead that eventually paved the way for the victory?
Yeah, just poise and under control, understanding like I'm a freshman, but this moment's not too big for me. You could see it when he came out and he knocked down his first 2 shots of the game. They weren't easy shots. He's flying off screens 20 seconds deep into an action, and he's stepping into it left, right, knocking down tough shots. Like, obviously, it's good to see them go down early, but, you know, he missed a couple beyond that to start the second half, and then he hit the biggest one of the game to put them up 7. Even though Wagler responded on the other end, Braylon Mullins adds another dimension to this team, and it's not just Braylon Mullins, because solo ball has struggled this entire tournament. Silas Demery has been dealing with injury, and then you get the natural production that they've been giving relatively the whole season, and that whole backcourt shows up in a way that we haven't seen all 3 of those guys show up in any game this tournament, and it's why they were able to come out on top. It was enormous from all 3 of them.
I'm glad you brought up Silas Demery because, as you said, you know, he's been dealing with injuries, so struggling not to his 100% self. But he goes 7 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists. John, I'll start with you. What changed for him that we didn't see in this tournament? Because he's still not 100%, but he looked like a much more productive player against Illinois.
Look, you know, I think no one knows this. He's played 6 days is a big deal. 5 or 6 days between being able to heal an injury or an injury that's nagging is a big deal. He's just getting healthier. He's getting better, and he's got one more day of rest, which is going to bode him well. And we saw today, even on kind of a bad will, how effective he was for this team and what he does for this team all across the box score. So he's going to have to ice that ankle up. He's got a big-time game coming on Monday, but we're just seeing him get healthy at the right time. And hopefully from Monday we get a fully healthy Demery, because what else would you want on a championship Monday against either Arizona or Michigan? He's so big for them as far as getting everything together. And then he hit some timely shots today, had some timely stops as well. Big-time game from him, knowing that he has a high ankle sprain, which is one of the worst injuries in basketball to be playing on.
Yeah, and Noah, Illinois, you know, as John pointed out, they played a whole lot of one-on-one ball, right, trying to get into the paint. They were not shooting the ball effectively from 3, just 23% on the night. Do you feel like Coach Underwood maybe mismanaged how he coached this game, or Was it just UConn's presence and ability to press up on them that really flustered them?
I don't think he mismanaged the game. Listen, he's not the one out there taking the outside shots. They were 3 for 14 from the three-point line at halftime, and then they came out in the second half, and they still struggled. Keaton Wagler was 1 of 7 from the three-point line before he hit that one with under a minute to go to cut it back to 4. But overall, coach not shooting the ball, and these guys got some really clean looks that just were not dropping. I mean, you're playing in front of 80-plus thousand people in an arena that most of these guys have never probably even stepped foot in if they're not going to NFL football games. So it's a much different backdrop when you see, the depth of that crowd going up, and you're trying to, just focus on the tiny little cylinder that you have to, make a three-pointer. I don't necessarily put it on Brad Underwood. I put it more on the lack of shot making from Illinois and really the UConn defense. I mean, they came out and set a tone. Now, the problem with UConn's defense was they could not stop fouling. They were teetering this fine line of physicality, but too many free throw attempts. They had a stretch from the 12-minute mark to the 6-minute mark of the second half where they fouled on just about every single possession. I mean, Illinois was in the double bonus with 11 minutes left in the game. And honestly, the fact that Illinois wasn't able to take more advantage of that is more to their detriment, considering how weak they were from the three-point line to not be able to ground and pound and feed the big guys and get more paint touches so you can get back to the free throw line. I thought that was a mismanagement. Players on the floor. Keaton Wagler was really good getting downhill. And not to go backwards on the Silas Demery point, but most of the time he was able to get downhill on Demery or whoever he was switching onto him with Caravan, and he was struggling from the outside. I thought they ran away a little bit too much from just continuing the downhill attack towards the rim.
Absolutely. Now, when you think about UConn on the other side, so yeah, I get your point about Underwood. He didn't mismanage the game because the broadcast even pointed out where they got a whole ton of good looks right from three. They just weren't knocking them down. But when it came to UConn's offense, how it's very sophisticated and you have to be moving at all times, John, why wasn't Illinois able to do what they did against Houston when it came to their defensive energy?
Look, man, getting around those screens, Illinois might have been a little too big, right? A little too big, a little too slow, because there was a lot of guys coming off those screens, getting cracked, sticking to screens. So UConn got a lot of good looks, and you can't really game plan for that style of play unless you play at UConn. And it seems like, the guys Stojakovic and Vicevic and all those guys, they kind of struggled switching and coming around those screens. Caravan got a lot of good open looks. Mullins got a lot of open shots off the double pin down. So, they didn't have the guys to kind of get swift to get around those screens. And as I said before in the beginning of the show, hey, look, UConn got better looks late and early, and that was the game, because this was a nasty game. 34% for Illinois, 35% for UConn. Winnable. This is a winnable game for Illinois, but like I said, UConn got better looks down the stretch, and defensively with the assist part, right, that just means they're guarding their man and there's no overhelp. That probably was a game plan. Look, if we let Wagler go get 40, don't let anyone else get off, we'll be fine. They didn't overhelp on any of those post-ups. They didn't overhelp on anything, because that's how you get your three-point guys going. Stojakovic to the rim. Hey, look, tough finish. We'll live with it. And it seems like that game plan worked in this war of attrition where UConn came out on top.
Yeah, and they missed a whole lot of bunnies, right? There were layups like right at the rim that just, there was one bucket, right, that just rolled on the rim for what felt like an eternity, and it didn't drop, and that kind of summed up the night for Illinois. But for Terrace Reed, Noah, I feel like he has got to be perhaps the most valuable player of this Huskies team because of how consistent he's been in the tournament. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, you got to stamp that one. There's no doubt about it. There's been no one more dominant, honestly, in the entire tournament outside of Yaxel Lindenborg, who's been this consistently dominant. The double-doubles this year, but also, he came into the night averaging 22 and 13 throughout this tournament. And I was a little bummed towards the end of the first half and then most of that second half. He did not get a lot of touches. He had 11 points and 5 rebounds at the half. And I don't think he scored his first bucket of the second half until the 4-minute and 30-second mark. He had a couple chippies that he missed when he did get the ball, but the efficiency and a 59% free throw shooter getting to the line and knocking down all of his free throws. I thought his passing and his free throw making ability versus Duke was really on display. And then tonight, you didn't see as much passing out of the post. He had the one, silly turnover on the double team when he called. Well, he didn't turn it over. He called a timeout. He was about to turn it over. I thought he lacked a little confidence in the second half, but ultimately, like when they needed a bucket, really down the stretch, he was able to do that. And this game looked a lot like their first matchup. Illinois has only been held to 62 and 61 points twice this year. Both were against UConn. The first game they had 61 points. Tonight they had 62. And Terrace Reed was not a big factor in that first game. But tonight I thought he set the tone, and then he showed up down the stretch when they needed him.
Absolutely. And one other thing that really helped UConn get to another national title game, their ability to protect the rock. Just 4 turnovers on the night. John, how did they make sure that Illinois' defense wasn't going to bother them and get them out of their comfort zone? Because we have seen it before, but in this game, they were able to lock in.
Well, that's the trouble with Illinois over the season. They don't turn you over. They just don't do it. And so that's been a theme for them all year. And this just comes down to experience. Their coach has been there. They've got a couple guys with rings on that roster. So the moment was not too big. And you could tell they weren't flustered. They ran their stuff. They took their shots. When the game got close, they tightened up. They ran a play. They get Terrace Reed a layup to kind of stop the momentum. So this is classic why experienced teams usually go on to win games in the tournament. You saw tonight, UConn just was a little less rattled early on, and that ultimately, the first half, got them to win in this game because the second half was pretty even, 33-34.
And not just that, but also Braylon Mullins. Okay, you talk about experience, John. Remember, in that half court where they were not fouling, similar to what UConn was doing against Duke in the late game, he was able to hold the ball. He was composed, so showing he's wise beyond his years as he is going to the national championship game. John Henson, no bono, appreciate y'all. And UConn has 9 wins in the Final Four all-time from 2011 to 2026. That is tied the second most, along with Kentucky, going back to 1948 through 1966. UCLA, what a surprise, with 18 straight wins in the Final Four from 64 to 73. Coming up, the Huskies stamping their plate on to the national championship game. They are looking for their 3rd national title in the